I'm your father. I make the rules in this house, and you obey. Do you understand me?
The bride price envelope lay between them on the cafeteria table, thick with naira notes that David had been saving for months. Esther stared at it, her akara growing cold, knowing that this moment would change everything. "It's not enough," she whispered, and David's world tilted. "But that's getting ahead of ourselves." Before tradition became a wall, before a father's pride met a lover's defiance, there was a girl, a boy, and a promise they were never sure how to keep. In Umunze village, where red earth clings to your sandals and every sound echoes with ancestral whispers, Esther was born into a house where tradition wasn't just followed, it was law. Her father, Chief Michael, measured a man's love not by his words but by the weight of the bride price he carried. As a respected village elder, he believed in quiet strength and old ways. He rarely smiled, but when he looked at Esther braiding her hair by their compound gate, there was pride, even when he didn't say it. Esther grew up chasing chickens barefoot and reading Chinua Achebe by kerosene lantern at night. Her mother would find her there, squinting at pages and whisper, "A woman must know where she comes from before she knows where she's going." At 16, Esther rejected her first suitor, a palm wine tapper and a nervous starter who brought 20,000 naira. "Why did you say no?" her father asked, his voice dangerously low. "Because he doesn't know my favorite book," Esther replied, then immediately regretted her boldness. Chief Michael's jaw tightened. Books don't plant yam or birth children. At 18, she asked him why only men paid bride price, and he walked away without answering. She wasn't reckless, just curious. Books taught her to question. Her village taught her to obey. And somewhere between those two forces, Esther dreamed of a different life. David was raised by a widowed mother who sold books at a roadside stall in Ibadan and taught him that emotions were to be felt, not flaunted. She believed in logic, humility, and long prayers that lasted until the neighbors complained. Unlike Esther, David was born into a land where tradition bent like young bamboo, strong but flexible. His mother had married for love, not bride price, and she'd raised him to believe that a man's worth wasn't measured in naira notes. He studied engineering, loved Miles Davis, and had a strange obsession with collecting pocket-sized notebooks where he wrote thoughts like, "Love should feel like coming home, not walking on eggshells." He was quiet where others were loud, thoughtful where others were quick to speak. His classmates called him the philosopher, but not mockingly. There was something about David that made people want to confide in him. The University of Nigeria, Nsukka felt like crossing into another universe for Esther. Girls wore jeans and argued with professors. Boys played guitar under the stars and spoke about revolution over cheap beer. She found David in Philosophy 201, sitting in the back row, scribbling in one of his notebooks, while Professor Elvis discussed Plato's allegory of the cave. "What do you think?" the professor asked the class. "Can tradition and progress coexist?" Hands shot up around the room, but David raised his quietly. "Tradition should serve people, not strangle them," he said, his voice carrying clearly despite its softness. Esther turned to look at him properly for the first time. His handwriting was terrible, she noticed, glancing at his notes. But there was something about the way he spoke that made her want to disagree. "Easy to say," she called out, surprising herself, "until tradition stands in your way." David's eyes met hers across the room. Sometimes tradition is the only thing keeping us from falling. They were both right, but neither of them knew how much that conversation would foreshadow. Their second conversation happened at the library, where Esther was researching women's rights in traditional African societies, and David was reading about cultural anthropology. "You're the girl from philosophy class," he said, approaching her table with 2 cups of tea. "I'm the girl with a name," she replied, but she was smiling. "Esther," he said, settling across from her. "I looked it up on the class roster. That's mildly creepy, or thorough." He slid 1 cup toward her. "I'm David." They talked until the library closed, debating everything from Achebe to Adichie, from bride price to women's liberation. David thought her voice sounded like poetry being read in a thunderstorm. Esther thought his laugh was the most honest sound she'd ever heard. Over the following weeks, their friendship deepened like roots finding water. Esther would bring him akara in the mornings, leave notes in his bag, quotes, poems, reminders that she saw him. David would save her seats in lectures, walk her to her dormitory, and write her name in his notebooks beside his deepest thoughts. They weren't perfect, they were real. But even in their laughter, something unspoken grew, a tension that neither wanted to name.